Anton Deveau had a schedule. 6 a.m., start the day. Hot shower, shave, brush his teeth, little blue pill, coffee, croissant, get dressed, act like he had some place to be, strip, sit on the couch, watch television, and scratch his balls. By mid-afternoon, he was knee-high in his own self-pity. After divorce court and endless reruns of Seinfeld, it was time for lunch. A sandwich, maybe some leftover chicken, or a slice of cold pizza. At this point, eating became just another habit. Everything was right on time.
Just like clockwork,
he'd say. 5 p.m., he would make some calls, listen to his mom bitch about the old fat ladies at church, hang up and think about the friends he used to have, call his buddy, get some weed, and pretend he was happy. Night falls. Right on time. Order dinner. Chinese, Italian, or perhaps he would feel exotic one night and order Thai or Indian. He always ate on his sofa, the ugly purple and green plaid couch his ex-girlfriend Vicky dumped on him. 9 rolls around, head to the bedroom, put his ear up against the wall, and listen to his neighbors fuck. Like clockwork. Give them 30 minutes, then bang on the wall. 11 was bedtime. 2 white pills and a yellow one. Sleep takes over, then the cycle repeats. Today Anton woke up at 6 o'clock as usual. He took his shower, shaved, and in the middle of brushing his teeth, heard a knock on the door. He tried to ignore it and continued to brush his teeth. He got the small white cup that sat at the back of the counter and filled it up with water before rinsing his mouth. The knocking came again. He acted as though he didn't hear, but the small rapping soon became a constant pounding on his door. Anton threw down his face towel and left the bathroom.
"All right already, I'm coming,"
he shouted. The knocking stopped. Anton got to the door and looked through the peephole. To his relief, he saw no one but a darkened hall.
"Goddamn kids."
He opened the door slowly, peering into the hall. When he was sure no one was there, he opened the door all the way. At his feet was an envelope. It had no address and simply read, "Open me." Anton's brows furrowed. He looked across the hall. Directly across from him was a door with a dingy number 12 on it. He knew his would say 13. Anton picked up the envelope and quickly retreated into his unit, locking the door. The apartment was quiet and still, his haven from the outside world. Anton threw the letter on the couch and went to the window. He pulled back the curtain to let some light into his living room and was met with a glass pane filled with rivulets of water. All he could see through the rain were blurry colors and obscure shapes. He closed the curtain again and turned his lamp on. The warm glow of the electric light lifted his mood. Anton looked at the white envelope on the couch. "Open me," it said. He made his way over to the couch and sat, picking the piece of abandoned mail up. He held it up to the light and knew it wasn't a check. He opened it with one swift tear at the end. One piece of folded paper slid out. It was thin and yellow, its end slightly browning with decay. He unfolded it. Scrawled on the paper were bold and sharp letters, script written as though the writer didn't have enough time.
"To who this letter now finds,"
he read,
"I have made a grave mistake and have paid the ultimate price." What the hell?
He didn't bother finishing the letter. Anton threw it aside. It must have been some sort of joke, a prank some snot-nosed kid was pulling a fuck with him. Well, he wouldn't let them ruin his day any further. Anton looked at the clock. A bit past 7. It was time for his coffee. He went to his kitchen, which was as cluttered as the rest of his home. Organized chaos, he called it. Everything had its place. It just so happened its place might be stuck against the wall or a pile at the foot of his couch. Anton grabbed his bag of coffee, got water from the sink, and performed his usual rituals. He sat back against the counter and folded his arms, eyes falling back on the letter. A grave mistake, the letter mentioned. What if the letter wasn't a prank, but a cry of help from some young, hot girl next door? Anton bit his lower lip. His coffee steamed. He grabbed the pot and poured the dark beverage into his favorite mug. He didn't feel like cream and sugar today. Anton leaned back and took a sip of his coffee. Whoever wrote the letter acted as if they didn't know who they were writing to.
To who this letter now finds.
Anton scoffed and looked at the clock. It was time to get dressed. He finished his coffee, trying to let the warmth calm the distressing thoughts of the letter. He set his mug down and weaved through the mess of his apartment, heading to his bedroom to open his closet and fish through wrinkled shirts and jeans, sweaters and slacks. He settled on some old yet comfortable jeans and a white tank top. Afterwards, he walked back into the living room and plopped down on the couch, feet kicking up and pushing aside a stack of magazines on the table. He turned on the television and flipped to his usual channel. Some girl was crying into the arms of a talk show host while a man yelled victoriously in her face about not being the father to her baby. Usually, seeing the troubles of others lifted his mood, but instead of criticizing women on TV, he thought about the letter now lying on the floor by the leg of the table.
Fine,
he said before giving in and picking up the letter. He opened it up once more and began to read.
To who this letter now finds, you have made a grave mistake and must pay the price. So it is written, so it is written.
He was sure he had read it differently before. Anton rubbed and blinked his eyes before continuing. The words began to fade, too illegible for him to read. He moved on till they became legible again.
Alone, alone, he finds himself, inviting all his friends.
Anton frowned.
Friends?
More illegible text. The rushed scrawl of writing ended there. Anton didn't have any friends.
What the hell is this? An invitation?
He said. Below that was more text, this time printed neatly as if another person had written it.
Through smoke and shadows you now see. Invite the cold ones to come into thee. Tongue and spit come to call. Open the door into the cold one's hall. Be and be gone. At midnight strikes the clock. Answer the call when you hear the knock.
Anton could only stare at the letter. He didn't know what to think of it, only that it was total bullshit, and the fact that someone left it at his doorstep further angered him. He wanted to rip it apart, to tear it into pieces and say, "Screw you" to whoever was playing with him. Without any more thought of the letter that had haunted him all morning, Anton continued to watch TV. Commercials, reruns, breaking news, and sitcoms came and went. And then the clock struck 12 noon. Anton got up, wondering why he hadn't climbed back into some comfortable pajamas.
Because my whole day got fucked up by that letter,
he said. It was lunchtime, and he had skipped breakfast. He was feeling that decision. His stomach growled and ached, so Anton headed to his fridge. He opened the door and was greeted by the smell of decay, the sickening scent of rotting meat and vegetables.
What? What happened to my food?
He yelled into the palm of his hand, covering his mouth so he wouldn't puke from the putrid smell. He opened his freezer to check if it was broken. It was cold. Too cold. All his food was frozen and freezer burned. Yet the dowel had not been touched. He quickly closed his refrigerator and went to the phone. Takeout was always nice. He called the number for Joe's Pizzeria. The line had interference, a constant static that was probably due to the rain or something. He didn't care. Anton ordered himself a medium pepperoni and sausage pizza. 20 minutes, they said. He sat down and waited, tapping his foot for 20 minutes till the pizza man knocked. He got up quickly, slightly relieved at the thought of another person for once, though he still felt the familiar tension in his back, and his palms began to sweat. Hadn't he taken his blue pill today? Anton went for the door, sweaty palms gripping the knob as he leaned in and peeked through the hole. A pimple-faced kid with a Joe's Pizzeria hat was standing outside. Anton grabbed his wallet from the counter. The kid knocked again. Taking out a 20, he opened the door to receive his food. No one. Absolutely no one was there. He looked down the hall. No one, not even the fading steps of a person. He shivered, feeling cold. Anton suddenly smelled a stench, slightly blown across his face, as if someone were standing there. Goosebumps prickled his skin as he stared at the empty space in front of him. His pulse quickened, and he slammed the door, locking it with fumbling hands. He was so sure he saw a kid there, holding his pizza. He couldn't have left that quickly. He would have heard him leave.
Just cool it. It's nothing. A mistake. Probably had the wrong floor and my guy's lost. Damn idiots.
The television was still on, but Anton felt nervous, as if it was not enough noise and liveliness. He was supposed to be used to being alone by now. He liked his solitude. His home was his reprieve from the shitty world. Every once in a while, though, it was nice to hear another person. Anton sat down on his couch and broke out his phone. Perhaps he would call his mom earlier than usual. No, it wasn't time. He took a breath and told himself to calm down and go about his day, which is what he did. A movie, a joint, some games, and cartoons relaxed him. He smoked some more weed till his eyes found the clock, which told him it was now past 5. Perfect. He grabbed his cell phone and dialed his mother. The phone picked up on the 4th ring, but Anton heard only a garbled version of his mother's voice.
Mom, you there? I can't hear you. Storm's got everything messed up. Hello?
A low whine.
What's up with you? Hello?
A faint moan came from the other end of the line. It sounded like his mother was in pain, but he could only hear weird, distorted words, as if she were speaking through broken glass. Soon the noise stopped. Silence. He listened closely for her breathing. Then came that smell again, like something died. Anton scrunched his nose and looked at his phone. It smelled like it was coming from his cell.
Ma, come on. You're starting to freak me out.
The line died. He hung up and wiped his suddenly sweaty palms on his pants. He set his phone down and got up, going over to the window for much-needed air. He pulled back the curtain and saw dark eyes within a face, hovering in the darkness beyond. His reflection watched him just as quietly as he watched it. The sun set early this time of year, so it was already dark out, making his reflection look as though it was materializing out of the darkness. Anton closed the curtain and sighed. If he opened the window, he would only let rain in. He went back to his TV and sat down. He flicked through the channels and settled on the news. But the image began to go funny. The lights dimmed and brightened again, flickering with the television.
Damn it. Not you too. Anything but the TV,
he said, standing up to smack the side of his television. The image stabilized.
That's more like it.
He stepped back to look at the TV screen, but it wasn't on Family Guy anymore. The TV showed him in his living room, with him standing in front of the TV set. Anton felt his heart quicken. He raised an arm. The man on the screen did so as well. When he jumped, so did the man.
The fuck?
He stepped back to look at the television screen. He wanted to slap himself, to wake up on the couch in front of his favorite show. Had someone always been watching him? Watching him just as he watched TV? The Anton on TV began to move. That wasn't right. He thought it was a live feed. He watched himself walk over to the table and pick the letter back up. He watched his other self reading. Anton thought he saw something else, though. Around the other him stood several dark and skinny shapes, like people not quite there. He squinted, trying to make the shadows out, when the floorboards creaked behind him. Anton whirled around, eyes darting. The front door was slightly open. He knew for sure he had locked it. He ran for it, stumbling over books and DVDs on the floor. He stubbed his toe on the corner of an end table and cursed before finally reaching the door and slamming it shut, locking it once more. He looked around his empty apartment.
No one is here. No one is here.
He whispered to himself. That's right. He was alone, as he had always been. He took several deep breaths. He was just high-strung, he told himself. He needed more sleep, maybe a hot shower. Suddenly, the television began to scream static, white fuzz obscuring whatever had been on. He could feel goosebumps rising on his arm. He hated that sound. Anton ran back to his couch to grab the remote, but it was gone. He looked on the table. No remote. He knew he had set it down. Had he thrown it on the way to the door? He began to search frantically, overturning his couch cushions, slapping magazines to the floor in his search.
God damn it,
He swore, turning to the TV and reaching behind it to snatch the power cord out. Silence. The television came back on. Except this time, it was black. He knew it was on because it wasn't the blank, lifeless screen he was used to seeing, but a dark image that seemed to shiver and move as if trying to bring back a picture. He threw the cord down and looked at the black, empty screen filled with darkness. The only sound in his apartment was his own heavy breathing and the slap of rain against the window.
the letter.
He said. The Anton on TV had went back to the letter. Was there more to it than he thought? He walked back to the table and snatched the letter up, opening it to read.
This can't be right.
The letter was different. Completely different. The original writing was gone. It had been changed. He began to read the new writing.
Ignore them and they'll get in. They'll get in.
He read the last line.
Like clockwork.
He laid the letter down and shivered. He didn't know how the letter got changed. Perhaps someone had switched it. After all, his door was open earlier. Someone must have gotten inside. Anton shook his head over and over. Impossible.
No one is here.
As he said it, he could feel the emptiness of his home and life. He had a routine. People were rarely a part of that. The only one he could trust was himself. Anton balled his hands into fists and took 3 deep breaths. Hot shower, he thought. A nice hot shower to calm him down. He looked at the clock. 8? No, that wasn't right. Only 30 minutes had passed. Not hours. Anton laughed nervously.
The light. Duh. It reset the clock probably. Come on. Get it together, man.
He said. With a smile and nervous eyes, he made his way to the bathroom in the bedroom. He turned on the lights as he went, all of them. He left no shadow to linger. He closed the door of the bathroom behind him and pulled the shower curtain back to turn on the shower head. Hot, just short of scalding. Within minutes, the bathroom began to fog. Anton got undressed and folded his clothes up to lay them on top of the toilet. He got into his shower and let the hot water wash over him. Taking the soap and towel, he began bathing in his usual manner. Legs, arms, chest. He stood under the water and slowly relaxed. He closed his eyes. Water rushed over his face, and he paused. He couldn't explain it, but he suddenly felt watched. Anton opened his eyes, water stinging them because they were so wide. The bathroom door slowly opened. The lights began to flicker, and for a moment, he thought he saw writhing shadows against the wall in his bedroom, too tall and too skinny, like misshapen men moving around in his apartment.
Hey, who's there? Get out of here.
Anton jumped out the shower and grabbed his towel, wrapping his lower half before flying into his bedroom to hurt whoever it was. Anton was ready, heart racing, skin tight over his knuckles. But no one was there. Anton swallowed, and then the lights went out. Fumbling through the darkness of his bedroom, he got out a taper candle and a lighter. His heart felt like it would jump out of his chest. He lit the candle and held it to the darkness.
I'm warning you. You don't want to fuck with me.
A breath of cold air touched the back of his neck. He swung the candle around, searching the darkness. He could smell rotting meat again. And then something sounded from his living room. A small chorus of chuckles, so faint he wasn't sure he had heard it at all.
That's enough,
he said. He ran into the next room. There was no one there. He went to the couch and snatched up the letter. He opened it again. There was only one repeating line on it this time. They got in. They got in.
You want to play? Fine.
He held the letter over the candle and watched it catch fire. He grinned maniacally in the darkness as the yellow parchment darkened into ash. He waited till the last corner was left and released it to burn up in the air. It was done. Over. The lights came back on, strong and bright. He laughed into his empty living room. No one would get him. No one could get in. He was alone. He blew the candle out. Anton Deveau had a schedule. Today he woke up at 6 a.m. as usual, took his shower, shaved, and in the middle of brushing his teeth, heard a knock on the door. Anton set his brush down and opened it. No one. No number 12 across the way. No door. No neighbors. No hall. Just endless darkness. His breath quickened. He looked down, sweat beading his forehead. At his feet was a small, white envelope. No address. And it read, "Open me."